Am I prepared for Norway? It looks like I am. I've worked out. I have all my equipment. I have all my warm clothing. I know exactly what I'm going to shoot. Let's see what happens in Norway.
What we have is Ejaz.
Guys, this is the typical photography talk that all the photographers do before we go up. That's Eugene and Lance, they're with me. We're sitting down having breakfast in this comfortable restaurant before we go into the tent, and they're just discussing things which I think would be really beneficial for all of us. I'm going to suggest something. I know the focusing systems in the world have become extremely great, but try to keep your focusing point the smallest, because no matter what, if the focusing point is bigger, it cannot pinpoint the eye. When you keep it small, I think the camera system doesn't have a choice but to stay within that small square, and then you are in control by moving it back and forth. I still sometimes think back, and it's not that long ago, how did the wildlife photographers really go out there and take unbelievable images? No autofocus, no 30 frames a second, literally. It's on film.
You have National Geographic assignment to Africa.
Yeah.
And you have 50 rolls of film.
And that's it, you gotta live with it.
Until you come back, whether or not
you got it or not.
Got it.
But here's the bigger one. How did the sports photographers predict Michael Jordan flying in the air, where he's going to land? Because they're doing it with film.
Yeah.
And I think it's just something that we, the younger generation, has forgotten to do, is to predict where the animal is going to come.
Right.
We don't do that. We just simply say, okay, the animal is there, let's shoot.
Hopefully.
But we don't know if the animal is going to go this way or this way. And I think that we have lost as photographers.
Are you focusing on the animal, or are you doing hyper focusing where you're focusing 2/3 of the way in?
I put my lens at full, and I leave it there all the time. So for me to do 2/3 and then go 100% would be waste of time. So what I do is, the animal is not there, I will focus on a rock, knowing that the animal is going to go there.
But you're not focusing on 2/3 of the way in and then shooting at f8 or f11 and knowing that
Everything becomes easy. Just give me a focus.
No.
because that's what they say to do in landscape.
But landscape, they're shooting at f11 and f22, no?
But they're doing hyperfocal distance where you have to measure the lens and the distance, and you shoot 2/3
Still the software, what's it called? Photoshop.
Yes, which is very usable.
The other thing they were talking about, which is interesting for us, and Sony has it too.
Sony is a better camera, by the way, just so everybody knows.
If you can't afford a Nikon, Sony's a great second choice. Because this is on Sony too. It said, try highlight weighted metering, which is essentially matrix metering, but it protects the highlights.
Matrix metering or highlight metering, all it's doing is it's predicting what your highlights are. You are not predicting it, the camera is.
It's not predicting actually, it's measuring the fact.
It's measuring it, but it's measuring based on what it's been fed to know what's highlight and what's not. But I think that takes away the control from me as a photographer to tell the camera what's important to me. So there's something that I think we should all do is to climatize, and the camera needs to do exactly the same thing. So does your lens. Right now the camera, and they're very comfortable in the room, and it's nice and warm. I think by the time you go through the dog sled and everything, your cameras will get cold.
Right.
But if you were to go from here and start shooting in the next 2 hours, your camera temperature is going to be different internally than your external. So it does create fogginess in your focusing. Even from your lens, it creates that.
Are you keeping your battery in your camera while you're hiking for 2 hours, or are you keeping it on your body and then putting your battery in your camera?
I'm going to ask you guys to attach your cameras to a shorter lens, because when you're going up, there's only a small path. And if the muskox shows up there, a 600 or a 400 is not going to work.
What is the chance actually that they will be so close?
The last time I was here and I was doing the dog sled, because my knee was busted. We were going up and the dog sled guy had to stop because the muskox wouldn't let us go forward. So he's like, if I go, they may just charge from the back. So it's a good possibility that it may happen. And I don't know where we are going to sit on this dog sled, but the one in the front has a good chance if the muskox shows up to get bumped. See, I'm just trying to get used to the cold, so I am wearing my pajamas and my jacket and walking. It's minus 25 and I just have to psych myself basically and make my body so that I'm not cold tomorrow when we go up in the mountains. And you know what? Here, I don't have anything underneath my pajamas either. It's all skin. But I think it's a mind game. The better I get by psyching myself that it's not cold, the better I'm going to be in the tent. We are the first to be in Norway with minus 25 degree weather in pajamas. Alright, so the first thing that I need to protect is this guy. This guy is basically the first layer. After this will go my hat, and after the hat will go the hoodie of my outfit. Next, these are my pants. And what's so good about this is Patagonia basically makes this unbelievable waffle thing in here. You see this? What that does is basically keeps the heat of your body in here and it doesn't escape. And in the same exact material, I have another one, which is my body, for my body. So that also comes with a double layered hoodie. So this is the layer that touches my skin that will never leave me, whether I am in the tent for 1 day or I'm in the tent for 30 days. It's warm, thank God. This never comes off. I know it's gross, I get it. For my pants, I have this. They are quilted inside, and for my top, I'll just put on a regular t-shirt and then I will put on my other long sleeve t-shirt. These are all breathable fabrics. It allows my sweat to dry properly. It doesn't just hold the sweat inside, because if it doesn't, then the sweat will possibly turn into ice, right? After that comes this guy, a quilted jacket. After this comes the main guy, this guy. It's a one piece, but here is something that is super cool. This is the miracle glove. When I'm not shooting, I'm just wearing my mitts. And when I am shooting, what I do is I will move my finger here and my finger here, and now I can control my camera buttons with these two fingers exposed, and that's how I can shoot. So this basically is my entire outfit. Alright guys, this is the morning. I haven't been able to sleep well, and I think it's a combination of things. It's jet lag and also the anxiety of going up the mountain and sleeping in the tent in this cold weather. We did a run yesterday with all the clothing, and that is Lance doing his shopping like he was shopping for 500 people. I am sweating in this. I had a red jacket and I had a quilted pant, which I'm going to drop as well because I sweat too much. What's going to happen is that sweat is going to turn into ice in the cold weather, so I might as well sweat less and be a little bit cold. The only issue with that is my jumpsuit. It's a one piece, and if I need to take that off, I need to take that off in the cold weather. Of course, there's pressure and tension, but I'm definitely looking forward to going back in the cold weather, not feeling the fingers and the nose and the cheeks because they will freeze. But most importantly, coming back with images that I am happy with. I've decided to go a certain way to expose the muskox. It is tricky because the animal itself is dark, almost black, but it's got streaks of white in it as well. So I've come up with some tricks in my brain on how I'm going to expose that. I'll share it with you guys when I get up there.
Hey guys. Hey guys.
Ah, look at you! This is the engine that's going to drive us to where we want to go.
Say hello. So this is our rocket ship.
It's going to take us to Mars. You guys don't want to sit in the front? The view is amazing.
You're gonna be my windshield.
Of course, that's the reason. It's not about
Eugene picked up on it. Okay. And that's Eugene and Lance. Actually, Eugene was saying that he feels like he's in the Caribbean. Our engines are being harnessed. This is 500 horsepower. And this guy is actually 1,000 horsepower. They're actually getting the paws booted, so to speak. That's the front booty for the man. Hello, girl. These two guys are the kings. Hey, buddy.
It's better for the driving. There we go. That's okay.
You okay with this? Oh.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, don't worry. Just take a seat and feel comfortable.
Failure is the problem.
Okay. And yo.
Hey! Hey!
Hey.
Got it.
Got it. Got it. Hey. Will they recognize my voice?
If it was you alone with them
Yeah.
and you had the pronunciation, Høyre Venstre,
Yeah.
maybe. But when I'm here,
Yeah.
they've been.
Make it right.
Huh, 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 huh. Hey! Okay. Got it. Litt venstre.
Oh. That was a big bump. If you watch the beginning of this video, it looks like I was prepared, because I was, in the way photographers usually mean prepared. We talked about focus points, predicting behavior, manual exposure. I had a plan for my muskox photography. ISO 640, f-stop f4, and the shutter speed would give me what I would like for my exposure. And if the light was a little too dark, I had my tripod to give me the stability to get sharp images. I thought I was totally ready, but there is a level of preparation most photographers typically ignore because it doesn't feel like photography, and I learned that the hard way. This time I wasn't in my best physical shape. Yes, I had worked out, but I was still not there. And I didn't take that seriously enough. Because in your mind you think, I can push through. I have done hard trips before. I know the cold. But wildlife photography doesn't care what you did last time. It only cares what you can do today. Before we even reached the base camp, I started sweating while walking. The kind of sweating that tells you that there is something wrong. I was slower than others, and that had never happened. I could feel the lack of fitness with every step. And here's the part most people don't understand. In the cold, sweat is not discomfort. Sweat is danger. Because sweat doesn't stay sweat. It turns into cold. And cold turns into shaking. In Norway, we reached the tent. I sat down And within minutes, I started feeling cold, very cold. My body would not stop shaking. My teammates did everything right, but I could not stop feeling cold. And that's when I realized something that scared me. I felt wet. These are all breathable fabrics. It allows my sweat to dry properly, because if it doesn't, then the sweat will possibly turn into ice. Even after changing my clothes, I put my arms in the back and felt my body, and I felt cold, I felt sweat, I felt that I was wet. But the fact of the matter was, I was not. My mind just gave up. My body was just experiencing super cold. I was tremoring inside. That's when I called it. I shut the trip down. I'm gonna be honest with you, I am so disappointed in myself, because I had gone to Norway with a vision in my mind. The last time I was in Norway a few years ago, I was blessed with a storm. And those images had the emotion, because when you feel the emotion, the image feels the emotion. But this time we were not predicting a storm, and I said to myself, it's okay, I'm gonna go really tight and go with portraits and get some dramatic shots. I was so disappointed in myself because I got nothing. And I did my homework, but I forgot that one part of preparation that makes everything else usable: your body. Because in wildlife photography, your body is the tripod. Your body is the stabilizer. Your body is the vehicle that carries your vision. And if that system falls, it doesn't matter what your ISO speed is. Here is what I want you to take from this. A lot of us photographers prepare the camera. We prepare the lens. We prepare the settings. We also prepare our clothing, but we don't prepare the engine. And the engine is you. If you want to prepare better wildlife photography, your physical shape is not separate from your art. It affects your breathing, your steadiness, your patience, your decision making, your ability to stay calm when it's uncomfortable. Oh my God. And it also affects your creativity, because when your body is struggling, your mind gets loud.
It's a workout. Running with the buffalo. Some kind of workout this is.
And when your mind gets loud, you stop seeing. And that's the lesson I didn't want, but the lesson I needed. Being in good physical shape doesn't just help you survive wildlife photography. It helps you create better photographs. Because more stable your body is, the more stable your mind gets. And the more stable your mind becomes, the more you can execute the plan you came there with. So yes, I am disappointed. But I'm not done. I'll try again. And this time my preparation will include something that I can't fake: fitness. Not to prove anything, not to impress anybody, but because I want to give myself the best chance to create the photograph that I have in my mind. If you ever had a trip where something went wrong and it made you question yourself, I want you to remember this. A setback doesn't mean you're not a photographer. It means you found the next thing you need to build. Alright guys, so that was my story for Norway. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.
Oh, and woohoo! Yeehaw!